everyone! In this series of hopefully shorter videos, I'd like to answer the questions I often get about Druid. I decided to start with the easiest one to answer. How do glyphs work? Every glyph on Druid has two variants with different effects depending on whether you cast them in Celestial Avatar or outside of it. For simplicity's sake, I'm going to call non-CA versions of glyphs the yellow glyphs, and the CA versions the blue glyphs. I feel like repeating CA and non-CA all the time would quickly get very confusing, hard to follow, and hard to pronounce. First of all, what determines which version of the glyph is used is your state at the end of the cast time. For example, the yellow glyph of the tides is a knockback, while its blue version is a pull. If you start casting the yellow one on Veil Guardian to push the Seekers, but enter CA mid-cast, you'll end up pulling the Seekers instead. In such situations, you should pay close attention to the yellow cast bar above your health. But here is the tricky part. Glyph of the Stars, your elite skill, was added to the game much later than the other glyphs, and probably because of that, it works the opposite way than the rest. Annoying, I know. What matters for this glyph is the start of the cast time. For example, if you want to res your team, but you're about to run out of CA, you can still do it. As long as you start casting the blue version while you're still in CA, it doesn't matter that you finish the cast out of it. Similarly, however, you need to remember that starting to cast it before you enter CA won't res anyone. Now that we know which version you will cast, let's take a look at the functionality differences of the most commonly used glyphs and what the rare use cases of the other ones are. I use Death Shaman's tool for generating custom tooltips to highlight and clarify the differences that in-game tooltips are missing. The values displayed assume standard Druid build from my guides. Check description for details. First, let's look at your elite skill, Glyph of the Stars. It's a pretty big field you can cast from far away. It pulses stability to 5 people in both versions. The blue version additionally pulses Regen and Vigor, also to 5 people. Both versions also pulse healing, the blue one a bit stronger. The unique effects of the yellow version are that it's a water combo field you can blast for healing and a pulsing Condi Cleanse. As for the unique effects of the blue version, the most important bit is that it's a pulsing res. While the glyph has a target cap of 5 players, the revive is not limited by your subgroup. If you precast it before the entire squad goes downstate, and the first 3 pulses fully revive your entire subgroup, the next 3 pulses will revive the other subgroup. Its secondary effect is that it prevents health drain when downed. However, that doesn't mean it makes the affected people invulnerable. If someone is downstate in a Deimos oil, they will still be taking damage from it. All the glyph does is prevent the passive bleeding out. The next most useful and stupidly loaded glyph is Glyph of Equality. Both versions of it give 1 stack of stability to 5 people. The yellow version is a personal stun break, while the blue version is an AoE one. As for their unique effects, the yellow version is a very strong CC skill, which can be further enhanced with Mesmer runes if needed. On the other hand, the blue version cleanses conditions in a big radius. Another glyph you run most of the time is your heal skill, Glyph of Rejuvenation. This one's quite simple to understand. Through the Wellspring trait, it grants regeneration to 5 allies. The blue version does absolutely massive healing to your allies and heals you yourself for less. Now, the yellow version, trust me this is yellow, is supposed to heal you for a massive amount and your allies for less, but due to outgoing healing modifiers, it still heals your allies for a massive amount. If you find it hard to understand, let me simplify it further. This is the strongest burst heal in your kit, and due to outgoing healing modifiers, in most situations it doesn't actually matter whether you use it in or out of CA. The next useful glyph is Glyph of the Tides. The yellow version is an AoE knockback. The blue version is an AoE pull. While the knockback proves useful on Soulless Horror for the Tormented Dead, make sure to check out my pushing guide, and on Veil Guardian for pushing Seekers. The pull isn't very strong, so I wouldn't recommend running the skill for pulling adds. Mesmer Focus has a much larger range, so make them do it when necessary. The other two glyphs are very situational. Glyph of Unity is a long AoE tether. When you cast it, you need to be quite close to your targets, but afterwards you can move out further away from them. If you cast the yellow version, you tether to enemies. While it lasts, you'll deal a bit of damage to them every time you take damage with a quarter-second internal cooldown. The damage isn't significant, but it serves as additional hits that will help you charge your Celestial Avatar on fights such as Sabbath, where there is nothing to heal for the first half of the fight. Remember that to trigger it, you need to be taking damage. This is why you can see me casting the glyph and standing in fire whenever I do this boss. If you cast the blue version, you tether to allies. While it lasts, you do a little bit of healing to them every time you heal yourself, with a half-a-second internal cooldown. Once again, the healing isn't that significant, but it adds up if you trigger it off cooldown. Last one is Glyph of Alignment. You might know its yellow version from playing Conditioned Druid, as it's a high damage skill. It applies bleeding, immobilize, and weakness to enemies around you. The blue version is an AoE Condi cleanse and a pretty strong heal. As C. Nika was using this one on Heal Druid for the world first kill of Cerusium, so it's not as useless as you might think. Go check out his POV. One last thing I would like to mention is that when playing Heal Druid, in most cases you will be running the Verdant Etching trait, which makes all of your glyphs give AoE protection both in and out of CA, in addition to their existing effects. If you're looking for more general Druid guides, check out the Druid Guides playlist on my channel. With this series, I'm going to try and answer any questions you might have about Druid, so make sure to write in the comments what you struggle with the most. Thank you for watching, and look forward to the next part.